got to talk about Kristin Latt again, because it wasn't just the woes she's been dealing with, or else we probably wouldn't just keep bringing this up. We saw a new bottom, a new low for her putting. So she's officially lost the putter after a shocking display this past weekend, notably the meltdown on 17, missing a couple putts from inside of 10 feet. So I want to know, could we actually be witnessing a mental block that could plague her long term on the putting green, or do you see this as a small bump in the road? Because, there could be a real argument made that, like, this is not something that's just going to go away. There's been a kind of downward spiral here, and everybody knows with sports, it can be tough to control what's between the ears. So, Dustin, what do you think we're looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, it's been compounding spiral downward over time at this point now. And it stinks because she's still leading the field in a lot of throwing stats. Like, she's still throwing the disc very well. Her Circle 2 putting performance on average this year is about the same as last year as well. It really is just the C1X putting where she has plummeted. I mean, she was 6th last year in C1X, an 80% type person. Pretty good. This year, 22nd in C1X putting, 72%. And that is the difference between her winning and not winning, because she's still putting herself in contention with how well she's throwing the disc, but she's now not winning because she can't putt. And we've seen it all year long. But I think the most damning was, the final round of PCS, where she really struggled to get going, the entirety of Crumble, where she couldn't get going at all. And then what made this one even worse is it felt like she had shook off the demons. Like, at the end of day 3, she had a 3-stroke lead and she went 80% from C1X, and she was 2 for 4 from Circle 2. I'm like, all right, like, we got it. We've done it. But then the final day, she loses by 2 strokes, 44% from C1X. She 3-putts hole 11, which most people are going to forget about because of what happened on 17. And then, 17, it's damning because her stats in C1X were so bad, but I was not watching her airball like bullseye putts. And now we're watching her airball bullseye putts or barely hitting the chains. She's also changing how she putts. Like, she wasn't straddling all the time anymore. She was doing some staggered putts. It's like, man, this is just so tough. And as far as whether or not this is going to be a long-term issue or not, I don't know, because we've only seen it really going on for the last couple of months. I think she probably should have taken a break at some point, but she decided to grind through because it was a European stretch of events. Obviously, this event was like on her home soil, so I get it. But after Worlds, she needs some time off, because she needs to kind of figure out, what is this? Is it a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? Is it both? And how can I go about addressing it? And I think that that has to happen here soon.
Yeah, never a fun place to be in your game when you're not sure what's going to happen. Hannah, how did you perceive it? What do you think's going on?
Well, yeah. So first of all, to Dustin's point, though, I don't know when she's going to get a break, because 4 days after Worlds ends, she's off in China for the World Games for like 10 days. So we'll see what happens there. But no, I think this is a lot of the mental side of it. I think most of us can agree, like, putting is a lot of mental more than it's physical. It's a very simple motion at the end of the day, but your head gets very noisy, and it's very hard to concentrate on those moments when the pressure's on. And I think she has a lot of pressure on herself to win, especially in Estonia, because it's technically kind of her hometown, but that almost becomes like a disadvantage. There's just this pressure to not let anyone down. And I think that some of us relate to that on some level, but she's the Estonia version of Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, and that's a huge mantle to carry. So even though her mental game in the past used to be strong and her putting used to be excellent, everyone ultimately has their breaking point, or a point where it just becomes too much pressure and too much weight. And I wonder if we're starting to see that a little bit. I don't think it'll be a long-term problem, but right now, this is just the cycle she's stuck in. And like Dustin pointed out, unless she can get a break, she's probably not going to be able to get over this very much. If we look in the past, she struggled and she's made great comebacks between injury and other just mental struggles that she's had with putting or throws or whatever else. But she also never really played phenomenally at this venue. In 2023, she had a 16-stroke lead going into the final round at this event, and she won by 3, but she shot +8 in the final round. And that's not nothing. Like, that's important to note. And last year, she was finished in 8th, 8 strokes off of Missy Gannon's win. So I just don't think she's playing that well at home. So it's possible this becomes a long-term issue, but I think this will ultimately just be a blip on her season and her career, and she'll get over it soon.
Okay. Brody, you agree it's just a blip, or are we buckled in for maybe some bad play going forward?
Well, I'll say it is interesting kind of hearing a lot of people talk about the amount of pressure that she had playing in front of a home crowd, because we often hear the exact opposite. We often hear people talk about how the home crowd propelled them. We also hear people talk about that are maybe underdogs that were able to achieve something great because of the crowd fueling them from whatever reason it is. So I think it is interesting how sometimes we change the narrative to fit the story versus I think most people would like to play in front of a home crowd. I think most people would like to sleep in their own bed. I think most people would like to play a big tournament in an area that they're comfortable with. You know, you look at other sports, teams are going to perform way better at home than away. And so I think it is interesting. I have seen that narrative. Like there was so much pressure. And it's like, I think sometimes people just fit their own narrative to a story when in fact, this should have been the easiest major for her to win. All things are considered. Now, when it comes to the putting, there is 100% an issue here. I just went and had to watch hole one because someone was like, make sure you check out what hole one was. I don't know if you guys woke up at 2:00 in the morning to watch hole one. It was like a 13-foot putt and hit like the outside ring of chains into the cage. Just there's no confidence in the putt right now. But the thing that was most shocking to me is something that we have talked about Kristin for a while is how confident and how she can kind of stay in the moment. And on hole 17, what we saw was something that you would see from an amateur, someone that got embarrassed for missing a putt so close that is just trying to get out of there. They're just trying to get out of there as fast as possible, where a professional would have been like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Let me take a couple deep breaths. Let me figure out what's going on and let me make this next putt. And we just saw a completely different style from her that we've never seen before, which I think is kind of a red flag. And the other thing that we've talked about on this show a lot is Kristin always was the person when she was in the lead, she's just like, I'm not going to make mistakes because I know everyone around me is going to make mistakes. Silva is not that person. Silva is not going to gift you a major championship or gift you a tournament. We saw that early on. Silva's beaten those demons, and now she is going out there and taking it. And I think that's going to be an issue moving forward is Kristin can't just play safe and play to hopefully have other people around her mess up.
Yeah. Having Silva there knocking on the door definitely ups that pressure. Certainly did in this event. Hunter, what is your perception? What do you think we're going to see from Kristin moving forward?
I would love to believe the hometown pressure narrative or the European narrative or any type of narrative that's short term. But my problem is none of that makes you airball 10-foot putts. That makes you mess up tee shots. That makes you yank, have the issues we saw her having with the forehand at, I believe, PCS. That stuff, absolutely. I can get behind that. But you don't play great off the tee, play a phenomenal upshot game. I mean, I think she said Crumble was the best she's ever thrown the disc, if I remember correctly. You don't do that and then miss 10-foot putts. Like if you're under pressure all the time. You're not only under pressure on the 10-foot putts. That's actually where you're under the least amount of pressure. Because like, finally, I just got to tap this thing in. I've done it. So I unfortunately can't buy that. And I do have to think this is something going on between the ears. And I do have to wonder if maybe it's an internal pressure. She is in a contract year. She did sign a very large, lucrative 4-year deal that was based on her being essentially the GOAT, essentially the greatest current FPO player, and not essentially, she is or was. And I do have to wonder, like, as you have the emergence of Silva and Holland and Missy, and all of a sudden what she was used to of I just walk into a weekend, I do what I do, and I win, started to kind of go away. We have the slip up at the Open at Austin. She isn't winning majors right now. And all of a sudden her putter disappears in her contract year. That would be keeping me up at night. I don't know if that's keeping her up at night. I think the only way this gets fixed quick is if she switches putters, because when you're missing from this club, you got to do something that is just like feels fresh, feels new. I think it's time. She needs a beaded putter in her hand, and that'll fix the 10-footer. She might suck at 30, but all she's got to do is make inside 15 to win, and that I know from experience that'll fix the 10-footers.